I've seen cases where brilliant professionals from the corporate have come, third day they failing. They failed. Why? Students today come to us and tell, please don't expect us to fall in this one size fits all approach of yours. They are very open and vocal. It was not like earlier. Industry and academia should work together in terms of certain projects. These projects, unfortunately, in India, I don't see. Just because foreign universities come and set their shops here, it is not going to win. These foreign universities, students from here, they are able to attract there. Why? Because students have a longer plan of staying back in those countries. Now that I don't think is going to happen. Making people employable, and to create that employability, you need to be flexible, you have to be agile. So, in a government-funded institutions, the agility becomes a big challenge, except in probably IIMs and IITs. But then other institutions, they have to really find out ways and means. I tell students that US and UK should not be your lookout. You should be looking at Indian villages. And don't think that I am just making a very understatement. There is absolutely great opportunity for our students to look at opportunities in the Indian villages.
The industry academia linkages. Before I come to the question, and I was just going through some of the statistics. One statistic says, which was published by Forbes magazine, it says that the average lifespan of a company in the mid-20th century was around 60. Today, it has come down to 15 to 20. I think it falls somewhere between 17 or 18. So that's one side of the story. But if you look at the average lifespan of a university, it is close to 100, average is 100. And there are cases where I think the Harvard University in another 11 years, they'll be touching 400 years. So what I'm trying to say is, we generally talk about corporate arrogance. Corporate would say that there is nothing that the academia is doing. And academicians, once they get a PhD, they switch from a learning to a learned mode. So there is arrogance on both sides. And there is even though they should work in tandem, both industry or the corporate and the academia should work in tandem. At least the corporates can learn the lessons of sustainability from academia, given that we have a larger lifespan. So it can act as a feeder for each other. And given that there is such an opportunity, of course, we do have industrial visits, we do have guest lectures, we involve industry experts in designing the curriculum. A lot of things are done. I mean, most of it is for a compliance sake. But what beyond that can be done where the industry and academia can work together? Or can each of these parties work as a feeder for each other?
Now, I'll be a little more open on this. Industry, academia, interaction or working together is a myth. I'm using a very strong stand here. Why? Because it will not work out the way it is. Whenever I've been watching closely the industries coming or corporates coming to our campus for the last 25 years. Whenever there is a need, they will come. I'm using a very strong word here. Whenever there is a need, they'll come. Otherwise, they have 100 other things to do. The biggest challenge I find is that the industries, especially corporates in India, I'm talking about multinationals. I'm not talking about homegrown. Most of them in Bangalore, we find mostly multinationals. For today, they don't have that kind of fancy budgets. They have something called restricted or restrained by the hiring freeze. So uh, even they are not able to take certain decisions themselves. Only when there is a clear need or in that defined space that they come and approach the academia. And they ask one question. When we ask for faculty members for sabbaticals, they say one thing. What is the value your faculty is going to bring into a corporate? Now, similar question I can ask. What is the value an industry professional, when they want to relocate into an academia, going to bring in? Unless they prepare well, they will not be able to survive in the academia. I have had excellent examples. I've seen cases where brilliant professionals from the corporate have come, third day they're failing. They failed. Why? And then we were furious with the students, and students were telling us, look, first day they had a brilliant session. Second day was more or less a repetition of the first day. Third day they continued that. And they themselves realized that they had nothing more to offer. So this is mainly because of the attitude, mainly because of the constraints in the ecosystem. Therefore, what I always suggest is, more than if it is a career placement that industries or the both coming together should work on, it should be start from internships. Internships will give them an idea how best fit these students would be in the years to come.
Which can later get converted into PPO.
PPOs.
Yeah.
That is one thing. Second, most important thing is, industry and academia should work together in terms of certain projects. These projects, unfortunately, in India, I don't see.
I think at Christ, Samsung has set up a lab, an experiential lab.
IBM did it.
IBM.
So with insurance sector, Narayana Health, we are doing it now. So there are the sporadic cases.
Yeah.
But we would want what is that they have to come together, sit together. It should not be need-based. It should not be sporadic.
Correct.
It should be as per a very clearly defined template has to be created. And it has to be very clearly the discussion, deliberation, all those. As of now, I must tell you, last year we had more than 1,300 companies
coming in for
who came to campus. This year it has come down, I think, around 1,000. But still, this is substantial. Not many. It's because of the practices, the processes that we follow within the campus, which is making the students more disciplined. Students are more, I would say, employment ready. They are also ready in terms of their agility and flexibility. Fourth, I would say, the digital skilling that we are doing. All this is making employability one of the big factors there. So, in short, what I want to say is, let them work together. Now, this is more important for the corporates because the professionals will have to continuously reskill themselves, upskill themselves to stay relevant in the corporate. So let them work. See, they can do something like, for example, they can continue with their studies in terms of PhD. They can continue with the paper presentations, where academia and the industry professionals should work together first, come out with that synergy should lead to a better kind of a industry institute interaction. Otherwise, this, as of now, it is only a myth. You ask any university, they will endorse what I am saying.
Slightly different from what we have discussed. Oxford University, they released the word of the year. 2024, it was brain rot, and 2025 is rage bait. Now, brain rot is the excessive usage of technology, which makes people over a period a little incapable of their abilities. Now, rage bait is, there is constant rage in the social media, lot of anxiety, stress, which it invites. Now, why I'm bringing these two terms, and this has happened in 2 consecutive years, 24 and 25, and 26 is yet to get released. Now, one of the major challenge which I also as an academic find is the tech addiction of students. And this has impacted the attention span. This has impacted their creativity. This has even impacted their ability to articulate. Many of them can't write. They fail to even socialize with people because a lot of time goes in doom scrolling, keep scrolling and content watching. Most of the times they are virtual. And human interaction is something that is bare minimal. And I think that's where your community involvement projects, that's where social immersive experiences, you said meaningful internships, those things would add value to stay human, is what I felt. So how do we bring accountability and transparency in the usage of technology, not just in the classrooms, make them responsible? And what I'm trying to say is responsible usage of technology. How do we make such interventions in an academic space?
Now, before coming to that, you mentioned about Oxford University.
Right.
2 years back, I had an opportunity to present a paper there on this particular social project itself. Except for 2 or 3 professors, all the other papers presented were related with the AI only. Then it was not even like a rage like today it is.
Yeah.
So all the academicians, so as much as the students, even the academics were engrossed in this particular area of AI as well. And coming to the question in terms of
Addiction,
the biggest challenge today is not about for a university is not about the confinements in the curriculum or other aspects. I had made a mention earlier about the pedagogy as well.
Right.
In pedagogy, teaching learning process, what does a conventional university can afford to do? They can only have tenured professors there. Now, to some extent, we have practicing professionals coming. But will that provide the learning depth? No. So that is why we also have a very unique practice of learning partners. So a learning partner is a person or a group of person or an entity who brings in real value proposition to the campus, to the teaching learning. So it can be 10 people with them, 20 people with them, and they also prepare the learning material. Now, why I am saying about this addiction aspect and trying to connect with the learning partners, students today come to us and tell, please don't expect us to fall in this one-size-fits-all approach of yours. They are very open and vocal. It was not like earlier. They say that my learning pattern is completely different from somebody else. So I want the digital use, I want the learning material in a tech platform, and I should have the right to, my study time is 11 to 1. 11 to 1 is not AM.
PM.
I mean, sorry, not PM. It is 11 to 1 in the night. 11, it starts with the PM, but ends with the AM. So that is my learning time. That is the time when I'm really good at. So here the problem is we have to follow the students' learning pattern. And how do you ensure that there is substantial reward on the kind of effort that you take?
Sir, I've also raised this because yesterday in BBC they had mentioned that Sweden, they have switched back to traditional format of learning. Australia has banned the usage of social media until they turn 16. There are other countries, European countries, who would ensure that a parental consent is there for the usage of technology. So I think tech addiction is a common global problem, and a lot of countries are making policies or framing policies to reduce the usage of it. On the other side, the possibility that technology opens is also humongous. So how do we strike a balance in ensuring that it's neither turning addiction, at the same time it doesn't turn counterproductive?
I was lucky enough to be a part of a Finland project. Finnish school education is second to none.
Right.
It is amazing kind of how they have structured the process, how it is sequentially placed, what is the learning kind of, the ecosystem they create. It was an amazing project, tremendous amount of learning for us. In that, they said, towards the last sitting that we had with them, they highlighted this particular aspect, that they are not going to take tech to undesired levels. That means tech should serve as a facilitator, not beyond. So this is where the challenge to a faculty comes. How do you creatively design a learning material? How do you engage that pedagogy accordingly and have your evaluation mechanism in lieu of it? In fact, they wanted to study about our processes, which we call that our multiple evaluation processes. They wanted to know how this has been effective, and they did a beautiful feedback to us. So my point is that you cannot negate one from the other.
Right.
This has to coexist. That is my stand always.
Right.
Like tech, you can't discard saying that completely negating it is not a solution. You have to live with it. You have to explore the opportunities out of it. And I must say, most of the universities disown the kind of responsibility, accountability it has. If they take it up seriously, engage with students, not with 80% of their time on administrative or maybe the rest of the time on various publication and research aspect, universities have to find a dedicated time to focus on students. And if they focus on students, I am very, very sure that a major chunk of this addiction can be avoided. At home also, if parents are spending more time with the children, do you think that addiction will happen like this?
It won't.
It won't. Universities don't have time now. I'm very, very pained to say this, that focus should be on our primary stakeholder, or the second primary stakeholder in Indian context is parents. Secondary stakeholder is the student. So the students have to be focused at.
Not just about their intellectual needs, but also meeting their psychological needs.
And emotional
needs.
EQ is now going to be, or it was already, right. EQ is the prime defining force.
And do you think the adult, because in the department or in the school, there was also an introduction of healthful living, mindful living.
Mindful living, yeah.
Then even adult education. Do you think these kind of interventions are also needed in higher education?
See, most important thing is we are creating intellectual giants. That is not our purpose. We have to make our students EQ and SQ, socially relevant. Social quotients also have to be there. Today, we are also trying to bring in a new concept called nation building skills. So, all these have to be done. Only then our children, our students will have the responsibility, accountability towards themselves, to their family, to the community, to the society. Only then it will happen. Focusing only on IQ part of it is probably the failure for universities.
I was also watching an interview of a BITS Pilani professor in which he used a very interesting analogy. He said, today a learner has to be like an operating system. Now, I have the first iPhone which I had bought, and that does not support the updated WhatsApp. But still, I have an emotion attached to it, and I continue. So what this professor continue using it, but what this professor says is, we need to be like an operating system. If a system doesn't work, change your approach. Go with a new operating, or go with a different approach. Embrace the change. Keep reinventing, rediscovering. As in the Future Shock, Alvin Toffler talks about learn, relearn, unlearn. So, and whom I also consider as my mentor, Dr. Debashish Chatterjee, the director of IIM Kozhikode, he had used a very interesting term called flexpertise. One needs to develop flexibility and also develop expertise. So it's his coinage. So what I'm trying to say is today the career paths are no longer linear. Things have changed. Things are evolving quite faster than, there's a statement, even to stay in the same space, you'll have to keep running. So in all of these changes, how should we design or redesign curriculum, pedagogy, assessment? Some of the aspects I think we've already discussed, especially in terms of assessment. Because why I'm asking about assessment is, we might have done a lot of experiments in terms of pedagogy, would have developed a good curriculum, everything. But eventually, in terms of assessment, it is still the paper and pen.
Correct.
So how do you decide an assessment which would make the student or a learner future-proof?
See, I have a very interesting example for this. Supposing a person is asked, what is wind? What will be the answer? Generally, you get movement of air, whatever, isn't it?
Yeah.
But when certain concept is released, there is a clear-cut definition for that. For example, 6th standard geography book in NCERT, I don't know, many of us would have forgotten it.
Yeah.
It gives a very interesting definition for wind. It says horizontal movement of air is only wind. Then you can ask whether it is, why not vertical movement or movement down? It is updraft or downdraft. But why is it? And if that concept of wind has to be very clearly defined in in fewer lines, as brevity could be, you can say horizontal movement of air as per pressure gradient force is what wind is. Now, when a person talks about, especially from the context of a technical line, does it really incorporate all their understanding goes to that level? I doubt. Now, in a generic discussion, it could be fine. But when it comes to very, very specific niche areas, your learning has to be absolutely spot on or comprehensive. And I'm really worried that the universities, institutions, especially at undergraduate, postgraduate level, what lacks is the comprehensive evaluation. Okay. And we found this so early, but then we cannot make such drastic change because a student cannot take up this kind of a very comprehensive evaluation system and fail the undergraduate. They'll say the students have, because people expect people to complete undergraduate program, postgraduate program, and complete with the kind of distinction or at least with the first class. Is the present system of evaluation actually commensurate with the requirement or whatever that you teach? It is very, very skewed. Okay. That is why, as you initially said, unemployable, underemployment, all this happens. Because why should the corporates finds this difficulty? Basic fundamental concepts students are not clear about. That is where you require multiple evaluation. That is also the reason why we have integrated professional programs. So when a student does an undergrad postgraduate program and also takes up a professional examination, you will find different varying levels of evaluation, right? We have multiple levels of evaluation. One is conceptual, then analytical, application, so many areas. How many of our undergraduate programs you take up either you have a midsem exam or an end semester examination? How many of them are actually looking at the Bloom's taxonomy in terms of evaluation? And let us be very open about it. you have to have a comprehensive understanding of what you have learned. That is not happening. That is not tested.
Right.
So that is why, for me, it is not about the students passing an integrated professional program, or at the end of third year, if a student completes his or her BCom with CIMA, CPA, CFA, whatever. More than that, I am more keen on how are the students going through this multiple levels of evaluation, mostly analytical and application part of it. And today case studies are such that how do they synthesize their various levels of learning? So this is the most defining thing, and probably this is the secret of our success for students, not only completing their professional qualification and along with their undergrad study, also for the higher levels of employability.
Right.
Many a times I've seen corporates coming and telling us that after selecting, say, I must not say that, but then one of the big four took 350 students, and then they said, we don't want to fill our organization with your students. We will take students from rest of the country. Later they come back and say, can we continue with one more round of interview? Now, why this is possible? Why is it happening because of this? It's mainly because academia is not really taking up the responsibility of going through the complete cycle of learning. That is from curriculum design to the final point, and how you beautifully tie the ends together.
And I think there is a lot of responsibility in the faculty community as well. And I'm just sharing one of my personal experience. About a year back, we had introduced the learner-centered andragogy.
Correct.
Now, by the end of a semester, there's a student who comes to my cabin and says, "Sir, give me an explanation why I have scored less." I mean, she's someone who has scored good in all other subjects, which is not LCA. But when it came to actual assessment of writing, of creative thinking, out of the box, assessment, she failed. So now the challenge for me as a faculty is, how do I set the expectations clear, and how do I also curate the content in such a way that someone who's conditioned to regular exam is also fitting into something which is non-conventional in a learner-centered andragogy. I think a lot of ownership, the onus lies in the faculty community as well, to experiment with pedagogy as much as one needs to experiment with the curriculum design, and also finally when it comes to assessment as well. Now, having said all of this, I'm just, since has been associated with Christ for quite a long, Christ has the reputation. Christ also has the skill. Christ also has the history. Now, given all of this, last couple of years, what I've seen is, in terms of ranking, in terms of a lot of other accreditation, a lot of institutions that we have never heard of is getting featured in the top 10 or top 20. So I think time has come where institutions that adapt would only survive. It's not the legacy, it's the relevance. It's those institutions who are able to anticipate the changes would lead and flourish. Now, what has been your experience in terms of bringing in change and the acceptance level, both in the students and also in the faculty community? Because why I'm asking this is, people don't dislike change. They dislike to be changed. So what has been your, because you're someone who had brought in professionally integrated courses, which is non-conventional. You've tried with several experiments, including the village immersion program. So when you introduce, the first thing which I foresee is a resistance, both among the students and also among the faculty community. How do you bring them and align with your thoughts?
No, there is a very interesting proposal from my end. In 2016, I wanted the entire evaluation to be digital. your digital, the student, what happens in a mid-sem and semester examination in our campus, the entire university comes to a standstill, right?
Right.
Entire faculty members are going into invigilation, evaluation, and so on. How much of productive hours I personally feel would be lost in terms of course, when answer scripts are evaluated, and if you one-on-one, if you are giving a feedback, fine. Otherwise, I personally feel there is no value proposition. That is where in 2016, we introduced a concept. I brought in people and we gave them an idea in the department. We said, let us not wait for the university to do it. Let us do it in our department. Can you imagine what happened? Not even one member supported. I'm not disowning my teammates because they said, this is not relevant. You know what happened? 2020, in 2 months' time, we were forced to take it up. That day, I convened a meeting after the discussion with the Vice Chancellor. I exploded in the department. I told them one thing, and it is not just me. I had that our digital experts and the entire team were there. I told them one thing. Had we done that 5 years back or 4 years back, we would have been the leaders of change there. Why? Because we could not see COVID and all, we did not anticipate.
Right.
But I'm telling you, when you were forced to change and when you had an option intrinsically that you can voluntarily take up change, which is the one which is going to be more rewarding? The first one. Voluntarily taking it up, right? So the point I want to highlight is change is something as it's become a cliche now. Change is constant. We have seen my role as a director is to give a direction. That is what I always see. I see a line structure, I see a functional structure. And my role is only on functional side. And my role, when I clearly tell people ask, when there is a dean, why should there be a need for a director? So my point is, my interaction, my contribution to the department is only to see that there is a value proposition. How do you create? And I don't have the magic with me. I have to really work on it to create the kind of value proposition. So change is something without which we cannot survive. You have 100 examples from corporates. I'm not going to make it evident here. Why they all died, went into oblivion? Only because they refused, isn't it? So if you take it up, and as a practice, we never do any of our social projects ditto what we did in the earlier times. Everything was with a difference. The approach, of course, the streamlining process would be there. But so at the end of the day, what I have to tell is that how do you ensure that your learning is commensurate? As you rightly said, you have to stand in the same place, means you have to keep running. So how it is commensurate with the dynamic world outside? One last thing, I did a training for school principals. Some 200 of them came, and I gave them a simple example. A simple assignment. I asked them to write down what all processes they were following in an academic year in 2019-20 period. Then 2022, what did they do? 22 to 24. Yes. So 3 structures were. Do you know what was the most interesting thing? 2019 to 20, they did a completely different one. Program. Their work was very, very unique. 2020-22, completely different. You know what happened 22 to 24? They went back to 2019, most of the activities. When the whole world had changed at least 10x times. So you are already designed to become redundant because of this, our approach. So change has to be there. When the whole world is changing, how can academia say that we will not change?
Right. So probably as we come to the close of our conversation, there are one or two more things which I wanted to understand from you as an academic leader. How do disciplines like commerce strike a balance in following the tradition? At the same time, you also do a lot of experiments. When I say following a tradition, for example, there are a lot of softwares like R, Python. One can be an expert in it, but how do we interpret the data goes back to the fundamentals of knowing the statistics and the discipline knowledge. So one has to be quite traditional in its approach to know the content. At the same time, one also has to be knowing the context of it. And I'm asking this more because this year, I believe, is going to be very crucial, especially for the commerce domain. Taking the context back to Bangalore, where we're all working. And I just wanted to read out a couple of interesting statistics that I came across. There are 22 major recognized commerce colleges in Bangalore. I mean, I'm talking about the reputed ones. Now, if you combine commerce, BBA, BBM, all put together, there are around close to 400 colleges. And that is the established ones. Take today's context. We have around 146 deemed universities. Many of them are setting up the campuses in Bangalore. With the changes and the reforms that the new education policy has brought in, we have a host of international universities coming in. I'm just quickly reading out. New South Wales is one. They've already set up their campus in the Manyata Tech Park. You have University of Liverpool, UK. They're planning to set up in 26. Lancaster University is another. Surrey University is another. York University, Canada. Western Australia. They're all planning. Bangalore is eyed. And I think Bangalore is going to get emulated by other metro cities, and in the long run, other tier 1, tier 2 cities as well.
Gift City and all has come.
Already come. Now, in addition to that, you also have IIMs getting into undergraduate. I would consider it as encashing on the undergraduation than their a genuine interest in serving a larger, because globally there are several reports and studies which says that masters, the demand is going lesser. And today, if you look at, there are more than 19 Indian Institute of Managements in India. And IIM Bangalore has already started. IIM Kozhikode has also started their satellite campus with undergraduate program. IIM Indore were the first ones to have started. Now, if you look at the way they have designed the curriculum, that is something which I found quite interesting. They have something called BSc Honors Economics, Data Science, BSc Honors Data Science. And the first cohort, I understand they're taking around 80 students. And by 2031, they have a plan of expanding into 640. A lot of these commerce education is going to be eaten away by these established brands, international universities. And what these institutions have also done is they have blurred the traditional definition of commerce education. You don't find much of a distinction between commerce, economics, data science, business. So the whole identity of commerce is also getting diluted somewhere. Diluted or redefined, I don't know how to explain it. So in all of this context, how do you as an academic leader would want to define the philosophy of commerce education, and how do you want to shape the programs and also the individuals and institutions with this changing context?
I absolutely agree with the challenges that are being brought, especially with the onset of all these entities, international universities, IIMs and whatnot. My take is very simple. I'm saying when a commerce program is offered to the student, Student today has to spend some time to understand what are the value proposition in that particular program.
Right.
There will be similarly all these universities or entities will be forced to tell these are our offerings. But how do they follow it up with that? I'll give an example. We ourselves installed a Bloomberg Lab in our campus.
Yeah.
How many crores have been spent on that? Now, for establishing as well as to run it. Now, what happened was all the other departments in the university, many of the major departments, and they are all doing well, training. What did we do extra? We brought our alumni who have been doing exceptionally well in it, and we give them the freedom with the team to set up, and we ask them to do the training across the programs in department. Now, what is the outcome of it? Our students participated in Global Business Challenge, where IITs, IIMs, all of them participated. Globally, we became fourth.
Right.
In India, first, second, third came from this particular students of this department only. Now, this is what I'm saying. Earlier, I mentioned about horizontal expansion as well as vertical. The present, last year also we became fourth. But then we had US universities. This year, the 3 universities ahead of us globally, out of 4,000 plus participants, teams, the universities from Hong Kong came. Why? Quantum computing, they were utilizing along with the technical knowledge of it, along with the Bloomberg knowledge. So next year we are going to adapt ourselves to this particular thing. So you have to have a continuous monitoring, conversations in and around, and only then you will float above. Just because foreign universities come and set their shops here, it is not going to win. These foreign universities, students from here, they are able to attract there. Why? Because students have a longer plan of staying back in those countries. Now that I don't think is going to happen. This year alone, 35 of my brilliant students who have completed CPA US had to come back.
Right.
Because H1B, they had the problem. So the point I want to say is, if you know what you are doing, then do it well. You don't have to publicize. Our students are coming only because of a word of mouth, right? This year, almost 1.5 lakh student applications have come. If all these universities were setting up, there should have been a drastic drop. It has not come. So people are very clearly able to understand which is that particular entity which really gives them value proposition. If you provide value proposition and if you really focus on quality and on the outcome, definitely you don't have to fear about losing out on quality students. And quality students really define your program. Quantity will be there, quantity students, but quality ultimately decides. Right. And we are not selecting people with the 99 or 100% marks as a cutoff. We take students from 65 or 70%. And how do you transform them? That is the most important thing. What is the transformational journey are we creating leaders with nation in their mind? That is the ultimate goal of a university.
I am going back to Debashis sir. He talks about ROI, not return on investment. He says return on India. Now, how is it that you create that return on India is what his entire philosophy of running the Indian Institute of Management is. I'm curricula.
I tell students that US and UK should not be your lookout. You should be looking at Indian villages. And don't think that I am just making a very understatement. There is absolutely great opportunity for our students to look at opportunities in the Indian villages. and it should not be the Western markets and opportunities that they should be going there. Right. Be here. There are plenty, and India is emerging well. There are opportunities here. You should explore the opportunity, and that makes. And I tell our students, please ensure that you are not going to be employment seekers. You should be employment providers, and our students are quite capable of it. Yeah. We should be following that.
I think the sum and substance of our conversation can be, I think, jointly shared. For this student community, I think they should not remain nonchalant. Probably that could be the takeaway. And for the academic institutions and also for the corporates, they need to work together in tandem, acting as feeders for each other, supporting and curating content that helps solve problems and create value propositions. And for the regulatory bodies, I think there has to be a more flexibility to adapt to the changing requirements. For the academic community, one should be receptive, open to learn and adapt to the changes. When again going back to Debashish sir, he talks about learnability, willingness to learn, that openness to learn. So there are multiple stakeholders, and even the parent community also needs to be much updated about not just assigning the student to the academic institution, but own the responsibility of nurturing the talents that are inherent in the students and not be driven by peer pressure or such other factors or market factors. I think these were some of the takeaways. Anything that you wish to add on, sir?
I would say the primary stakeholder is still the parents. Okay. And I have very fierce debate about it with when we have this with other stakeholders. Now, when we had or when we have parent-teachers meet, people often laugh at us. In a higher educational institution, how can you have parents meeting? But don't you think that it has been highly rewarding? Parents' concerns and parents' feedback have been really, really guiding. And they come to know what is that we also offer and other things. So, primarily, parents are one of the most important. Second, very, very important stakeholder the academia is missing out is the community, the society. Why I'm saying this is Ban Ki-moon, the former Secretary General, made a beautiful statement. The role of the educational institutions, the universities, is to create social intellectual capital. How many of us from the academia are actually creating social intellectual capital? Means many of us are very, very happy to be in the confinement of that four walls of what we call the campus, because we are comfortable there. That is our space of comfort. What do? Nobody is there to question us. That I said, glass house to glass house journey, we ensure and eventually we are happy.
I remember you made a comment, most of us are compliance kings and queens.
Yes.
Because there is a NAC accreditation, there is QS ranking, there is India Today ranking. Eventually we end up meeting those requirements.
I am absolutely against this ranking. Why? Despite whether high or lower ranking, you have so many students coming. Because students today and the parents today are really, really driven by values. I often tell our people, supposing there is a very good restaurant, beautiful restaurant, very good. It gives us ambience, it gives us healthy food, it gives us the tasty food. And if it happens to be in the second floor of a big structure or a building, I am very sure, and with no lift, I am very sure people will still go there and probably stand in queue. Why? Because they know that they will get value for money, right? So when there is value for money, all these so-called statements like you are ranked this or you are nothing, it doesn't work out that way.
And I think India has a huge potential for not just creating value for money, but also for value for many people. I mean, that's the huge possibility which Sir was mentioning, which is there out there in the villages.
I cannot be blunt here and tell, but many of the universities funded by government, you find that the taxpayers' money is taken in. How many people are they able to do it? Handful, right? Whereas, look at deemed universities across the country. They are doing a great job of having and empowering people, the youth, and also ensuring that they get good placements. Unemployment is going to be one of the biggest challenge for our country. So, making people employable, and to create that employability, you need to be flexible, you have to be agile. So, in a government-funded institutions, the agility becomes a big challenge, except in probably IIMs and IITs. But then other institutions, they have to really find out ways and means. Only then this question of, otherwise, we will be huge factories churning out millions of students, and I personally feel our employment capability is from the university level is below 25%. Can you imagine what is when we should be requiring a huge number where people have to get a prospective job? So it's very, very important that how universities have to create the narrative which should be in lieu with the dynamic environment around.
I hope conversations like these would help us understand, redesign, or relook at some of our conventional assumptions about higher education. It was a pleasure talking to you, Biju sir. I hope more such conversations would make this higher education space better and brighter. Thank you.
I want to add one last sentence, is that gone are the days when you compete, you want to be the sole survivor. Today, the narrative should be collaboration. You cannot survive as one university doing well. It is not going to be sustainable. You have to reach out to other institutions and learn from each other. You are not going to enlighten them. You are going to work together and then see that you empower each other. So with NASCOM, we came out with another project of how to reach out to other institutions and grow together. Yeah. So going together, working together is going to be the new norm.